Dance with the Dead. Have you ever wondered, what if the dead don't actually rest? What if they're just waiting, in the space between heartbeats, for someone desperate enough to pull them back? You're about to find out. My name is Alex, and 3 months ago, I made a mistake that cost me everything. I thought I was saving the woman I loved, but I was really just handing her the keys to my soul. It started normal enough. You know how it is. Rain-soaked streets in Seattle, coffee shops on every corner, the kind of life where nothing really happens. Lena and I had been together for 5 years. She was a nurse at the local hospital, always coming home with that antiseptic smell clinging to her scrubs, dark circles under her storm-gray eyes. We weren't perfect. Money fights. Her pulling double shifts. Me working late at the design firm, staring at computer screens until my vision blurred. But we had plans, you know? A house someday. Maybe kids. The normal stuff that keeps you moving forward. Then came that Tuesday in October. I was crashed on our couch, some true crime documentary droning in the background. The kind of white noise that helps you forget the world exists. My phone buzzed at 1:47 a.m. Lena's name on the screen. "Home soon, babe. Love you." I smiled, typed back a heart emoji, and fell asleep waiting for her key in the lock. The call came at 2:15 a.m. "Mr. Harper? This is Officer Martinez with Seattle PD. There's been an accident." The words hit like glass shattering. Hit and run on I-5. Her car wrapped around a concrete barrier. No witnesses. No leads. Just gone. I drove to the scene in a fog, wipers slapping against the windshield, rain blurring the emergency lights into smears of red and blue. They wouldn't let me see her. "Too graphic," the paramedic said, his hand heavy on my shoulder. The funeral was a blur of black umbrellas and whispered condolences. "She's at peace now," people kept saying. "She's in a better place." But standing there, watching them lower her casket into the muddy ground, I couldn't stop thinking, what if they're wrong? What if there's nothing peaceful about death at all? That night, alone in our apartment, the silence pressed against me like a weight. Her pillow still smelled like lavender shampoo. Her coffee mug sat in the sink, lipstick stain on the rim. Everything screaming her absence. Sleep wouldn't come. I grabbed my laptop, the screen's blue glow harsh in the darkness, and started searching. What happens after death? Near-death experiences, communication with the dead. That's when I found the forum post that changed everything. User VileWalker23 had written this detailed guide about souls and astral cords, invisible threads that connect us to our bodies. According to him, when we die, the soul gets confused, wanders around in this dreamlike state, not understanding it's dead. But if someone loves you enough, he wrote, they can pull you back. The cord doesn't always break clean. It sounded like bullshit, New Age nonsense. But desperation makes you stupid, and I was drowning in it. I tried that first night. Sat cross-legged on our living room floor, carpet rough under my palms, and closed my eyes. Breathed deep, the air tasting stale and empty. Pictured Lena's face, her laugh, the way she'd hum off-key in the shower. "If you're out there," I whispered, "come back to me." Nothing. I tried again the next night, and the next. On the 4th night, as I lay in bed, sheets cold without her warmth, I heard it. "Alex." Barely a whisper, like wind through a cracked window. I shot upright, heart hammering against my ribs. The room was pitch black, digital clock glowing 3:17 a.m. "Lena?" Silence. But the air felt different, thicker, charged with static electricity. I flicked on the lamp, hand trembling. Empty room. Just shadows pooling in the corners. I told myself it was grief, the mind playing tricks. But deep down, something stirred. Hope, maybe, or something worse. The disturbances started small. Mornings I'd catch whiffs of her perfume lingering in the bathroom, jasmine and vanilla, though her bottles sat untouched on the shelf. The mirror would fog up without the shower running, and once, in the condensation, I saw a handprint. Slender fingers just like hers. At work, my computer glitched constantly. Files renamed themselves. Miss you PSD, comehome.jpg. Emails arrived from blank senders, subjects reading "it hurts" or "so cold." Walking home through the drizzle, umbrella slick in my grip, I'd hear footsteps echoing behind me. Perfect rhythm, matching mine step for step. But when I'd turn, empty sidewalk. Just streetlights humming overhead, casting long shadows that seemed to move on their own. The whispers returned, clearer each night. "Alex, help me. It's so cold here. Pull me back." I started recording them on my phone, playing back the audio over and over, headphones pressed tight against my ears. Her voice, definitely her voice, layered with static like an old radio transmission. My friends noticed the change. Tom pulled me aside at work, coffee steam rising between us. "You look like hell, man. When's the last time you slept?" How could I explain that I was having conversations with empty air? That every shadow might hide her face? That the pull in my chest was getting stronger, like an invisible fishhook reeling me in? I dove deeper into the forums instead. Found a YouTube channel called Beyond the Veil. Thousands of subscribers, slick production. The host, Marcus Hale, had this smooth voice and piercing blue eyes. Silver hair, expensive suit, bookshelves packed with occult texts. "Death isn't the end," he said in one video, staring directly into the camera. "It's a transition. The soul detaches, wanders in confusion. But love, true love, can bridge that gap." He offered guided meditations. Reach across the veil, his voice would whisper through my headphones. Visualize the cord, pull gently. During one session, the temperature in my apartment dropped 20 degrees. My breath came out in visible puffs, frost etching the windows despite the heater running full blast. Something brushed my arm, light as silk, intimate as a lover's touch. "Lena?" I breathed. A sigh, warm against my ear. Closer. Marcus hosted in-person meetings at a community center downtown. Gray building, peeling paint, lobby smelling of old carpet and burnt coffee. I went on a Thursday night, rain drumming against the windows. Inside, a circle of folding chairs. Dozen people with hollow eyes and haunted faces. Sarah, clutching a photo of her dead son. John, wedding ring still tight on his finger 3 years after his wife's funeral. All of us united by loss, by that desperate need to hold on to what was gone. Marcus welcomed me with a firm handshake, skin dry as paper. "We're all seekers here," he said, lighting candles around the room. Shadows danced on the walls, flickering like living things. Tonight, we opened the door. We meditated together, hands linked, breathing in sync. The air grew heavy, thick with incense that burned my nostrils. In the trance, I felt it, the tug in my solar plexus, stronger than ever, like being reeled in by an invisible line. Lena's voice bloomed in my mind. "Pull harder. Bring me home." The group became my lifeline. We met twice a week, sharing experiences, supporting each other through the transition process, as Marcus called it. But subtle changes crept in. Sarah's skin grew pale, waxy. Dark circles deepened under her eyes. "He's changing me," she whispered to me after one session, her breath sour. "My son. I can feel him inside, moving around." Marcus dismissed our concerns. Growing pains, he'd say, that gentle smile never wavering. Surrender to the process. Let love guide you. Home became a battlefield. Objects moved on their own, Lena's jewelry slithering across surfaces, her favorite mug sliding off counters to shatter on the kitchen floor. The TV flickered on at 3 a.m., static resolving into faces, distorted, mouths moving soundlessly. One night, the power cut out completely. Apartment plunged into darkness, air crackling with electricity. A figure stood at the foot of my bed, outline glowing faintly, features blurred like a smudged photograph. Lena? It stepped closer, floorboards creaking. The smell hit me. Decay, sweet and cloying, like flowers left too long in water. I scrambled for the light switch. When the bulb flickered on, nothing. But my arm bore fresh scratches, 3 parallel lines welling blood. I tried therapy. Dr. Ellis, kind eyes and a voice like warm honey, prescribed medication to ease the transition through grief. The pills dulled everything, but the invasions pierced through. Dreams intensified. I wasn't just seeing Lena's death anymore. I was living it. Rain on the windshield, headlights approaching fast, the steering wheel slick under sweaty palms. Impact. Glass exploding. Metal screaming. Pain beyond description. I'd wake with real bruises. Real cuts. As if her trauma was becoming mine. Marcus pulled me aside after a particularly intense session. "You're ready for the advanced work," he said, the community center's halls echoing around us. He handed me a leather-bound book, Astral Projection and Soul Retrieval. Pages yellow with age, diagrams of chords and energy bodies. To fully anchor her, he explained, you must temporarily sever your own cord, enter the astral plane directly. He gave me a vial of dark liquid. Herbal preparation. It thins the boundary between worlds. That night, alone in my apartment, I stared at the vial for an hour. The liquid inside seemed to move on its own, swirling like black smoke. Finally, I unscrewed the cap and drank. Bitter. Burning down my throat like acid. The room tilted, colors bleeding at the edges. My body went limp, but my consciousness soared. I found myself in a vast gray expanse. No sky, no horizon. Just endless fog rolling over spongy ground that felt like walking on flesh. Whispers surrounded me. Hundreds of voices begging, pleading, weeping. "Lena," I called out, my voice muffled and strange. A figure emerged from the mist. Her silhouette, her hair, but as she got closer, horror bloomed in my chest. Her skin rippled like water, features shifting and blurring. Eyes were bottomless pits, mouth stretching impossibly wide. "Join us," it said in Lena's voice, but layered with dozens of others, a chorus of the damned. "Cut the cord. Stay forever." Hands erupted from the fog. Hundreds of them grasping at my arms, my legs, their touch like ice needles piercing skin. They pulled me down into the spongy ground, and I realized it wasn't earth at all. It was bodies. Countless bodies, pressed together, reaching up with desperate fingers. I fought back to consciousness, gasping and shaking on my living room floor. But something had followed me back. The apartment felt different, contaminated. Shadows moved wrong. Reflections showed 2 faces instead of 1. The spiral accelerated after that. Lena's presence invaded everything. My reflection would wink at me, lips curving in her smile. Phone calls from unknown numbers, her laughter crackling through static. The walls themselves seemed to breathe, paint cracking in vein-like patterns. I isolated completely. Quit my job. Stopped answering calls. Tom showed up at my door once, pounding and shouting. but I hid in the bathroom until he left. The revelation came during a group session. Deep in meditation, Marcus guiding us with that hypnotic voice. Memories flooded in that weren't mine. Lena at the hospital. A patient dying in her arms. Guilt and grief consuming her. Finding the same forums I had. The same YouTube channel. Marcus's voice whispering in her ear. Reach across the veil. But here's the twist that shattered everything. Her accident wasn't random. The group had orchestrated it. A ritual death, body discarded so the soul could cross over and return through someone who loved her. They weren't helping people reconnect with the dead. They were helping the dead steal bodies from the living. The final session was held in the basement of the community center. Concrete walls, no windows, air thick with incense and something else, something rotting. I was strapped to a metal table, leather restraints tight around my wrists and ankles. Tonight, we complete the circuit, Marcus said, raising a ceremonial blade. The others chanted around us, their voices rising and falling like a tide. Your love calls her home. Your body gives her life. The blade nicked my chest. Just a scratch, but the veil tore open like fabric. Lena poured in, memories and personality flooding my consciousness. Her childhood, her fears, her slow corruption by the group's influence. I understood then. They were all vessels. The original souls pushed out, replaced by things that were once human but had been twisted by death and desperation. I broke free during the chaos. Adrenaline snapped the restraints, knife still in my hand. Fought my way up the stairs through the rain-soaked night. But she followed. Inside me now. Her voice in my thoughts. We're together forever. Home felt like a stranger's place. My reflection showed her face overlaying mine. My hands moved without my permission, typing messages I didn't want to send. The merger was incomplete but accelerating. Now, 3 months later, sitting here in what used to be my apartment, I'm not sure who's writing this. My thoughts, or hers. My memories or the echoes of her stolen life? The others from the group have found me. They stand outside my window at night, their faces pressed against the glass. Waiting. Watching. Ready to complete what they started. Listen to me. Whoever you are, wherever you are, if you've lost someone you love, don't try to bring them back. That voice calling your name in the dark? It's not them. Not anymore. The dead don't rest. They hunger. And if you open that door, you'll find out that some things are worse than being alone. Much worse than being dead.
The mother who never sleeps. Have you ever noticed how your mother always seemed to know when danger was coming, even when you couldn't see it yourself? My name is Sarah Williams, and I haven't slept in 347 days. Not really. Not the deep, trusting sleep that most people take for granted. Because I learned something that changed everything. Something that made me realize sleep isn't rest. It's surrender. And when you have an 8-year-old son sleeping in the bed next to you, surrender isn't an option. It started last spring, in our ground floor apartment on Maple Grove Avenue. Nothing fancy, just a 2-bedroom place where Marcus and I had been rebuilding our lives after his father left. The rent was cheap, the neighbors were quiet, and for the first time in years, I thought we were safe. I should have known better. The first sign came on a Tuesday morning. I was making breakfast when I heard it. This sharp crack, like a branch snapping. But when I looked outside, there was Mrs. Chen from 3B standing in her kitchen, staring at a hole in her window. Perfect circle, spider-webbed glass around the edges. Stray bullet, the police officer told her. Probably from the construction site down the street. These things happen. But I saw Mrs. Chen's face. The way her hands shook as she swept up the glass. She knew what I was starting to suspect, that there's no such thing as stray bullets. There are only bullets that haven't found their intended target yet. 3 weeks later, another stray bullet punctured Mr. Rodriguez's car tire. Right through the sidewall, perfectly centered. The police said the same thing. Accident, construction, these things happen. That's when I started paying attention. Real attention. You see, Marcus had been having trouble sleeping. Nightmares about monsters under the bed. About bad men coming through the windows. Normal kid stuff, right? But something in his fear felt different. Older. Like some deep part of him recognized a danger that his conscious mind couldn't name. So I started sleeping in his room. Just for a few nights, I told myself. Just until he felt safe again. But those few nights turned into weeks. And that's when I began to notice the patterns. Every morning, around dawn, there would be this sound. A whistle. Low, melodic, like someone calling to a dog. But it moved in a circle around our building. Always the same route. Always the same tune. At first, I thought it was just some early jogger. A mailman, maybe. But whistles don't map territories. People do. The morning everything changed. I was lying next to Marcus, listening to him breathe. Those soft, innocent sounds that sleeping children make. The sounds that tell you the world is still good, still worth protecting. That's when I heard the whistle again. But this time I got up, crept to the window, found a gap in the blinds where I could see out into the courtyard. And there he was. A man in a red baseball cap standing beside a white pickup truck. Not moving, not looking around, just standing there like he was part of the scenery. But there was something wrong with his stillness. Too perfect. Too deliberate. He was listening. I watched him for 20 minutes, barely breathing. Other people walked past. Joggers, dog walkers, parents taking kids to school. Normal life flowing around the statue of a man who didn't belong. And then Marcus stirred in his sleep behind me. Just a small sound. A mumble. The man's head turned toward our window like he'd been shot from a cannon. Not slowly. Not casually. With the sharp, hungry precision of a predator who'd been waiting for exactly that sound. My blood turned to ice water. I pulled back from the window, heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. Marcus was still sleeping, still trusting that his mother could keep the monsters away. That's when I understood. This wasn't random. This wasn't some construction accident or stray bullet nonsense. Someone was hunting us. Sleeping families. I spent the next 3 hours watching that man. He never moved, never checked his phone, never showed any sign of being human. He just existed there, like a tumor growing on our normal world. When he finally walked away around noon, I knew he'd be back. The certainty sat in my stomach like a stone, cold, heavy, undeniable. That night, I didn't even pretend to try sleeping. I positioned myself in the chair by Marcus's window, wrapped in a blanket, keeping watch. Because if someone was mapping our building, learning our routines, studying when we were most vulnerable, then someone needed to be awake when they came. At 2:17 a.m., they returned. But this time, the man in the red cap wasn't alone. Through the gap in the blinds, I could see 2 figures in the courtyard. The second one was smaller, younger, moving with nervous energy. The older man was pointing at different windows, explaining something, teaching. And slowly, horribly, I began to understand what I was watching. They were choosing which apartment to hit next. My hands started shaking as I watched them study our building like architects planning a renovation. They pointed at fire escapes, at sight lines, at windows that would offer clear shots into bedrooms where families lay sleeping. Where children lay sleeping. At 3:20 a.m., the younger one pulled something from his jacket. Even in the darkness, I could see the metallic glint. The distinctive shape that made my stomach clench with terror. They weren't just planning anymore. They were preparing. What do you do when you realize that the protection you've promised your child is about to be shattered? When you understand that your vigil, Your sacrifice of sleep and peace and normalcy is the only thing standing between your family and unthinkable violence. You do what you have to do. I gathered Marcus in my arms, still sleeping, and carried him to the bathroom. The only room in our apartment without an exterior wall. The only place that might be safe when the shooting started. I locked the door and settled on the cold tile floor, holding my son against my chest. His warm breath on my neck, his small hand curled against my shoulder. These tiny proofs that innocence still existed in a world that seemed determined to destroy it. "Mommy," he whispered, finally waking up. "Why are we in the bathroom?" "Just a game, baby," I lied. "We're hiding from the monsters." At 4:43 a.m., our bedroom window exploded. The sound was like the world ending. Glass and wood and plaster, and that sharp crack that meant someone had brought war into our home. Marcus jerked against me, terrified, and I pressed his face into my shoulder so he couldn't see the destruction bleeding through the walls. "It's okay," I whispered, over and over, as sirens wailed in the distance. "Mommy's here. Mommy's here." But I wasn't okay. Nothing was okay. Because I knew something the police wouldn't understand. Something the news reports would never mention. When we finally emerged from that bathroom, when the EMTs pronounced the scene safe, I saw the bullet hole in the wall, right where Marcus's pillow had been an hour earlier. And when I looked out that shattered window into the courtyard beyond, I saw the chalk marks on the pavement. Measurements. Angles. Calculations scratched into the concrete like a mathematical equation for murder. This wasn't their first time, and it wouldn't be their last. The man in the red cap and his student had vanished into the city, but their work remained. Those chalk marks were a promise, a reminder that they'd be back. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but eventually. Because this wasn't about Marcus specifically. This was about the hunt itself, the thrill of bringing death into sleeping homes, of shattering the illusion that families can ever truly be safe. 6 months later, I moved us to a different state. Found a third-floor apartment with security cameras and coded entry. Did everything the experts said would make us safe again. But I still don't sleep. Not really. Every night I sit beside Marcus's bed watching the windows, listening for whistles in the darkness. Because I know something that most parents don't want to accept. Something that would keep them awake too, if they really understood. There are people who hunt sleeping families. Predators who study the rhythms of our rest and strike when we're most defenseless. They map our buildings like territories, mark our windows like targets, and wait, with infinite patience, for the moment when our guard drops and our dreams make us vulnerable. They're out there right now. In parking lots and courtyards beside buildings where children sleep in beds pushed against exterior walls. Measuring angles. Calculating trajectories. Teaching the next generation how to bring nightmares into reality. And the only thing standing between those children and the darkness is mothers like me. Mothers who choose to give up sleep, give up peace, give up the luxury of feeling safe, so that their children can rest without fear. Marcus is 12 now, old enough to ask why I never sleep in my own bed anymore. Why I always keep watch by his window. Old enough to deserve the truth. But how do you tell your child that the world is full of monsters who hunt sleeping families? How do you explain that safety is an illusion? That the only real protection is eternal vigilance? Maybe you don't. Maybe you just keep watch, night after night, year after year, until they're old enough to keep watch for themselves. 347 days without real sleep. And counting. Because somewhere out there, in the darkness between streetlights, someone in a red cap is teaching someone new how to calculate the perfect angle for a child's bedroom window. And the only thing stopping them is mothers who refuse to close their eyes. So the next time you tuck your children into bed, the next time you kiss their foreheads and promise them they're safe, remember this story. Remember that safety isn't something that just happens. It's something that has to be fought for, maintained, protected, every single night. And if you hear a whistle outside your window in the early morning hours, don't assume it's nothing, because it never is.
The prison that never let me go. Have you ever escaped from something, only to realize you never really left at all? My name is Thomas Kane, and I need to tell you about Ironhold. About the prison that was never meant to hold bodies, but souls. It's been 30 years since I walked out of that place. 30 years of freedom, of marriage, of watching my daughter grow up. But every single night, I still hear the whispers. And now I'm starting to understand that maybe I never escaped at all. Maybe none of us did. Let me take you back to 1952. The war was over, but for men like me, men who'd seen too much, done too much, there was no real peace waiting. They shipped us north to Alaska, to a labor camp called Ironhold. Rehabilitation, they called it. A chance to serve our country one last time mining coal from the frozen earth. But that was the lie they told the families back home. The truth was different, darker. Ironhold sat in the middle of nowhere. 14,000 kilometers of white, nothing stretching in every direction. The kind of cold that doesn't just freeze your skin, it freezes your thoughts, your hope, your will to keep fighting. But I had something to fight for. Her name was Elena. My wife, waiting for me in some small town back east. And our daughter, Sarah, barely 2 years old when they took me away. I'd never even held her properly. Never gotten the chance to be a real father. That's what kept me alive in that place. The promise that someday I'd make it home. The other prisoners weren't so lucky. I watched them fade, day by day. Their eyes going hollow, their voices dropping to whispers. They'd sit in their bunks at night, talking to people who weren't there. Conversations with the dead, with the darkness, with something that seemed to live in the walls themselves. You hear them too, don't you? Old Murphy asked me one night. He'd been there longer than anyone, since the camp first opened. The voices in the vents, the promises they make. I told him I didn't know what he meant, but that was a lie, because I did hear them. Every night, as the Arctic wind howled outside our barracks, I heard whispers, soft, seductive voices that seemed to know exactly what I wanted to hear. Elena's waiting, they'd say. Sarah's growing up without you, but there's a way out, a path through the cold. Just listen, just follow. The guards were different. Not like any prison guards I'd ever seen. They moved too quietly, watched too intently, and they all hummed the same song, this tuneless, endless melody that seemed to burrow into your skull and make a nest there. Warden Harlan was the worst of them. A tall, gaunt man with eyes like black ice. He'd walk through the barracks at night, stopping at random bunks, just standing there, staring down at sleeping men. Some of them never woke up. Heart failure, the doctor said. But I knew better. They were being chosen. The mine was where it all started to make sense. We'd go down into those tunnels every day, hacking away at the coal face with picks and shovels. But sometimes we'd hit something else. Something that pulsed with its own light, warm to the touch despite the frozen air. Don't look at it, Murphy warned me the first time I saw the veins of strange mineral threading through the coal. Don't touch it. That's how they get in. But curiosity has always been my weakness. I reached out, just for a second, and felt it. Warm, alive, almost like a heartbeat. And in that moment, I saw something that made my blood freeze. A vision of the surface world. But wrong. Empty streets, abandoned buildings, families gone, and figures moving through the desolation. People, but not people. Their eyes glowing with that same knowing light I'd seen in the guards. That night, the whispers were clearer than ever. You understand now, they said. The world above is ending. But down here, there's forever. Join us. Become us. Keep your family safe in the embrace of the cold. I started planning my escape the next day. It took weeks to work the bar loose from my cell window. Every night, after lights out, I'd twist and pull at that rusted metal, my fingers bleeding, my arms aching. The whispers tried to stop me. Why run toward death? They asked. Stay. Accept. Belong. But I thought about Elena's laugh, about Sarah's tiny hands reaching for me in letters that came less and less often. I had to get home. I had to try. The night I escaped, a blizzard was raging outside. Perfect cover, or so I thought. I squeezed through that window, dropped into snow that came up to my chest, and started running. The cold hit me like a physical blow. Not just temperature, but something alive, something hungry. It clawed at my exposed skin, whispered in my ears, tried to turn me around. This way, it said. Safety is this way. Warmth is this way. But I knew better. Safety was south. Home was south. I ran for hours, or maybe days. Time stopped meaning anything in that white void. My compass spun wildly like something was interfering with it. The landscape shifted when I wasn't looking, hills appearing and disappearing, paths opening and closing. And always the feeling that I wasn't alone. On the third night, huddled in a snow cave I'd dug with my bare hands, I heard footsteps outside. Slow, deliberate, circling my shelter like a predator. "Thomas," came a voice. Soft, familiar. "Thomas, why are you running from us?" It sounded like Elena. I pressed my eye to a gap in the snow wall, and saw her. My wife, standing in the middle of a howling blizzard, wearing the blue dress I'd bought her for our anniversary. No coat, no gloves, but she wasn't shivering. She was smiling. "Come out, darling," she said. "Sarah's here too. We've been waiting for you." Every instinct screamed at me to stay hidden. But God help me. I wanted to believe. I wanted it to be real. I almost went to her. The only thing that stopped me was her eyes. In the dim light, they glowed with that same cold knowledge I'd seen in the guards. And when she smiled, her teeth were too sharp. Too many. Soon, she whispered and faded back into the storm. I ran harder after that. Days blurred together. I ate snow, chewed on leather from my boots, hallucinated conversations with people I'd left behind. The whispers never stopped. "You can't escape us, Thomas. We're already inside you, in your dreams, in your memories. Every time you close your eyes, we're there." On the 9th day, I shot a seal. One of my 3 bullets. The only ones I had. But I was starving, desperate. The meat tasted wrong, too sweet, too warm. And as I ate, I noticed symbols carved into the bones. Ancient marks that seemed to move when I wasn't looking directly at them. That night, I dreamed I was back in the mine, but the tunnels stretched on forever, filled with that pulsing warm light. And at the end, at the very end, was a door. "Open it," the whispers said. "See what we're offering. See what you're rejecting." I woke before I could touch the handle. Months passed. I found a forest. Then prospectors who helped me. Then betrayed me. I built rafts, crossed rivers, fought wolves. Every step south felt like swimming against a tide that wanted to drag me back north. And through it all, the whispers followed. They didn't just promise warmth anymore. They promised understanding, purpose, a family that would never abandon me, never stop writing letters, never forget my name. "The world is cold, Thomas," they said. "People are cold, but we're forever warm." I made it to a village eventually. Real people living real lives. They took me in, fed me, offered me a place to stay. For a moment, just a moment, I thought about accepting. But then I saw the way they looked at each other. That same knowing glance. And I noticed that none of them ever seemed to sleep, never seemed to dream. They were already part of it. The thing that lived in Ironhold, that fed on prisoners and dreams and the desperate need to belong. I ran again, and again, and again. It took me 2 years to reach the border. 2 years of running, hiding, fighting the whispers that grew stronger with every mile. When I finally crossed into the lower states, when I finally saw civilization again, I wept. I'd made it. I'd actually made it. Elena was waiting for me at the train station in Denver. Older, thinner, but still beautiful. Still mine. Sarah was 4 now, shy and curious, hiding behind her mother's skirt. "Daddy," she whispered, and my heart broke and healed at the same time. We went home. I got a job at a factory, learned to be a husband again, a father. The whispers faded, not gone, but quieter. Background noise I could ignore. For 30 years I lived a normal life. Watched Sarah grow up, graduate, get married, held my grandchildren, built something real, something good. But the whispers never completely stopped. And now they're getting louder again. Sarah came to visit last week. She's 43 now, a successful lawyer with children of her own. But as she hugged me goodbye, I saw something in her eyes. That familiar gleam of hidden knowledge. "Dad," she said quietly, "it's time." "Time for what?" She smiled, and for just a moment her teeth looked too sharp. "Time to come home. We've been waiting for you to finish your journey, to understand that there never was an escape, only a longer path back to where you belong. I'm writing this in my study, doors locked, windows barred. But I can hear them outside." Elena's voice calling softly. Sarah's children laughing and playing in the yard. The sound of life, of family, of everything I ever wanted. But underneath it all, I hear the whispers. "Welcome back, Thomas. Welcome home." And I'm starting to understand the horrible truth. I never escaped from Ironhold. The prison was never the walls, or the guards, or the frozen wasteland. The prison was the whispers themselves. The promise of belonging, of purpose, of never being alone again. And every year I spent in the real world, I was just serving a longer sentence, building deeper attachments, creating more reasons to finally give in. They let me go because they knew I'd come back. They knew that 30 years of freedom would make the cage feel that much more like home when I finally returned to it. The door is opening now. I can see them through the gap. My family, my friends, everyone I ever loved. All of them with those glowing eyes, all of them smiling with too many teeth. "Don't fight it anymore, Thomas," Elena says, stepping into the room. "You've been running for so long. Aren't you tired? Don't you want to rest? And God help me. I do. I'm so tired of running, of fighting, of pretending that the whispers aren't the most honest thing I've ever heard. Maybe they're right. Maybe the world is cold and cruel and temporary, and maybe there's something to be said for forever. The cold is coming in through the windows now, not the killing cold of Alaska, but something warmer, inviting, embracing. I can see Ironhold in the distance, waiting. Still there, still patient, still hungry. And I finally understand that I never left at all. So let me ask you something, as you listen to this story in the warmth of your own home. Can you hear them? The whispers in the walls, the voices in the static between radio stations? Because if you can, if you're nodding along, thinking that maybe, just maybe, belonging is worth any price, then maybe you're already in prison too. And maybe, that's exactly where you belong.
The diary that knew my name. Have you ever found something that knew more about your future than you did? My name is Anna, and I need to tell you about the Sterling Resort. About the diary that predicted my death, and how it tried to save me from something far worse than drowning. It's been 3 years since that night at the canal. 3 years since I should have died. But I'm still here, and I'm finally ready to tell you why. The job posting seemed too good to be true. A luxury mountain resort, decent pay, room and board included. After months of rejection letters and my parents' medical bills piling up, I didn't have a choice. I should have known better when they hired me over the phone. No interview, no background check. Just, can you start Monday? The Sterling Resort sat 12 miles deep in the Colorado wilderness, connected to civilization by a single winding road. Beautiful in that cold, untouchable way that rich people love. All glass and dark wood, rising from the forest like some predator's den. Mr. Sterling himself met me in the lobby. Tall, sharp-featured, with eyes that lingered too long on places they shouldn't. His smile was all teeth and calculation. "Welcome, Anna," he said, and something in the way he said my name made my skin crawl. "We trust you'll be accommodating. Our clientele has very specific needs." The way he emphasized accommodating left no doubt about what he meant. But I needed this job. I needed the money. So I smiled back and nodded, hating myself for it. He showed me to my staff quarters, a small room at the end of an empty hallway. Clean enough, but something felt wrong about it. The walls were too thick, the windows too small, like it was designed to muffle sounds. "Get some rest," Sterling said, pausing at the door. "Tomorrow, we'll discuss your additional responsibilities." That first night, I lay awake listening to the building settle around me. Old wood groaning, pipes ticking, the occasional footstep in the hallway outside. But underneath it all, something else. A sound like scratching, like someone writing frantically in the walls themselves. The next morning, I tried to push away the unease. This was just a job. I could handle whatever they threw at me as long as the paychecks kept coming. But then I noticed the key. It was sitting in the lock of my bedside table drawer, a small, ornate thing that definitely hadn't been there the night before. Someone had been in my room while I slept. Curiosity won over caution. The key turned easily, and inside the drawer, I found a diary. Old leather, cracked and worn, like it had been handled by 1,000 desperate fingers. No title, no name on the cover, just this weight to it, like it was full of more than just words. I opened it to the first page, and felt my world tilt sideways. October 15th. Anna arrived yesterday. The rain soaked through her cheap coat, and she smiled that fake smile when Sterling explained her duties. She thinks she's running from her problems, but she's just run straight into her grave. My name, written in fresh ink that seemed to gleam wetly on the page. Every detail perfect. The rain my coat, even the forced smile I'd given Sterling. Details no one could have known. I slammed the book shut, hands shaking. This had to be some sick joke. A prank by the other staff, or some twisted way Sterling liked to mess with new employees. But as I stared at that innocent-looking diary, a new line of text appeared at the bottom of the page. I watched the words form, letter by letter, in that same elegant script. Tonight, she'll hear footsteps in the hallway. They'll stop outside her door and wait. I laughed, a thin, hysterical sound. This was insane. Books didn't write themselves. I was letting the isolation get to me. I locked the diary away and went about my day, checking in guests with their hungry eyes and knowing smiles. Wealthy men who looked at me like I was part of the amenities, part of what they'd paid for. But that night, as I lay in bed trying to convince myself I was being paranoid, I heard them. Footsteps in the hallway. Slow, deliberate, getting closer. They stopped right outside my door and waited. I held my breath, listening to the silence on the other side of the wood. No knock, no voice, just this presence, patient and predatory. After what felt like hours, the footsteps moved away, but I didn't sleep. Couldn't sleep, because impossible as it seemed, the diary had been right. The next day I opened it again with trembling hands. A new entry had appeared. A bruise will appear on her arm. 5 fingers, like someone grabbed her in the dark. She won't remember how it got there. And sure enough, when I rolled up my sleeve that morning, there it was. 5 faint marks on my bicep, cold to the touch. I hadn't bumped into anything. No one had touched me, but the bruise was there. The entries started coming daily. Small predictions at first. Which guest would complain when the power would flicker? What I'd find in my coffee cup. Always accurate. Always written before it happened. But then they got darker. The men will come to your room tonight. They won't ask permission. Sterling sees you as inventory, not a person. I read those words just after lunch. That evening, my door swung open without a knock. Sterling walked in with 2 drunk guests, bottles of expensive whiskey in their hands. "Anna," Sterling said, his voice smooth as oil. "Our esteemed guests were hoping for some company." One of them leered at me, raising his glass. "To hospitality," he slurred. I felt trapped, cornered. The diary's words echoing in my head, inventory, not a person. But then something strange happened. As the men settled on my couch, making themselves at home, the temperature in the room plummeted. Ice crystals formed on the windows. The lights flickered, and I heard whispers. Not the diary writing itself, but actual voices. Faint, desperate, coming from the walls themselves. "Get out!" they hissed. "Run, now!" The guests looked around nervously, suddenly uncomfortable. The whiskey glasses shattered in their hands for no reason. One by one, they made excuses and left, dragging Sterling with them. I was alone again, but not really alone, because I was starting to understand that something else lived in this place. Something that was trying to protect me. I started talking to the staff, the older ones, the locals who'd worked these mountains for generations. Maria from the laundry was the one who finally told me the truth. "This ground is cursed, child," she whispered, not meeting my eyes. Long before the resort, this was a battleground, sacred land where warriors would consume their enemies' hearts. "The soil here is soaked in blood and rage." She made a sign to ward off evil. "The spirits don't rest. They're angry, but not at you. They're angry at what this place has become." That night, I woke to searing pain across my chest, like someone had dragged a knife from my collarbone to my ribs. I screamed, fumbling for the light. Blood soaked to the front of my shirt. A deep gash ran across my chest, burning like fire. But when the night manager came running, there was nothing there. My skin was smooth, unmarked. My shirt was clean. "Go back to bed," he said, looking at me like I was insane. "And don't waste our time." As the door clicked shut, I saw the diary lying open on my nightstand. A single line of fresh ink glowed under the lamp. "The spirits have marked you as one of their own. You belong to the mountain now, not to Sterling." That's when I realized the truth. The bruises, the cuts, the visions, they weren't attacks. They were warnings. The spirits of this place were trying to show me what Sterling had planned. What he did to girls like me. The diary wasn't predicting my future. It was trying to change it. Things escalated quickly after I started refusing Sterling's requests. My phone disappeared. My room was moved next to his office. Guards started following me everywhere. And the diary's entries became desperate. "If you don't leave soon, they'll take you to the water. The canal runs deep and cold, and they've used it before." I tried to escape, packed a bag in the middle of the night, planned to slip away before dawn. But when I went to get it, it was gone. Vanished completely. You didn't have a bag when you came here. The staff told me with blank, innocent faces. How I was losing my mind. Or maybe I was finally seeing clearly for the first time. The final entry appeared the night they came for me. Tonight. The canal? 3 men in the water that remembers all their secrets. But you are not alone. We are with you. They cornered me in the lobby. Sterling and 2 of his thugs smiling like wolves. We're going for a drive, Sterling said, to clear the air. The car cut through the darkness, headlights barely penetrating the forest. I sat in the back between 2 silent mountains of muscle, my heart hammering against my ribs. When we stopped beside the canal, I knew this was it. The place from my nightmares, from the diary's warnings. Get out, Sterling commanded. The water was black as ink, reflecting nothing. Sterling stepped toward me, his mask of civility finally dropped. You've been difficult, Anna. We value obedience here. That's when the whispers started again. Not from the diary this time, but from the air itself. From the ground beneath my feet. Jump, they hissed. Trust us. The water won't take you, but it will take them. Sterling's men grabbed me, started pushing me toward the edge. But as I fell backward, I felt other hands. Cold hands, spirit hands, guiding my fall. I hit the water and sank, but not down. Somehow, impossibly, I sank sideways. Through the canal and into some underground passage I couldn't see. Behind me, I heard screaming. Sterling and his men, thrashing in water that had suddenly turned violent. The canal wasn't just water anymore. It was full of the spirits of every girl they'd murdered. Every victim who'd been pushed into these black depths. And they were hungry for justice. I washed up on a riverbank 3 miles downstream, gasping and alive. When the police found Sterling's car, all 3 men were gone. Drowned, they said, though they never found the bodies. The diary was still with me somehow. Dry, despite my soaking clothes. One final entry had appeared. You are free now. But remember, some places protect their own, and you will always be one of ours. I left Colorado that night. Never looked back. But I kept the diary. Sometimes, when I'm facing a difficult decision, when I need guidance, new entries still appear. Not predictions anymore, but advice. Comfort. The voices of women who died in that cursed place, but found a way to reach across death to help the living. They saved me from Sterling, from becoming another missing girl, another unsolved case. But more than that, they taught me something important. Sometimes the ghosts aren't the ones you need to fear. Sometimes they're the only ones trying to save you from the real monsters. So if you ever find yourself in a place that feels wrong, if you hear whispers in the walls, or see shadows where there shouldn't be any, don't assume they mean you harm. Sometimes the dead are more trustworthy than the living. And sometimes a haunted diary is the only friend you'll ever need. Listen to the whispers. They might just save your life.
Sound that changed everything. Have you ever heard a sound that you knew deep in your bones was meant for you? I thought I was safe. We all do, don't we? Living in Oak Ridge, with its neat little lawns and matching mailboxes, it felt like the kind of place where the worst thing that could happen was a stolen Amazon package. I was wrong. It started 3 months ago. I just moved into this ground floor apartment on Maple Lane. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. After years of cramped studio apartments and noisy roommates, I finally had my own space. My own bed. My own sanctuary. That first week I'd fall asleep scrolling through my phone reading the news. There was this story about an 8-year-old boy named Jaden, shot in his sleep by a stray bullet that came through his bedroom window. The image stayed with me. This kid probably dreaming about video games or cartoons. And then, nothing. His mother was on every channel, tears streaming down her face. He was just sleeping, she kept saying. Just sleeping. I remember thinking how terrible it was. How tragic. How distant. Distance has a way of disappearing, doesn't it? The first knock came on a Tuesday night. Soft, almost polite. 3 taps. Pause. 3 more taps. I was in bed half asleep when I heard it. My apartment sits right by the front door, so sounds carry. I figured it was a neighbor, maybe locked out or drunk or both. But something felt wrong. The timing. The rhythm. Too deliberate, too patient. I waited. Silence stretched out like a held breath. Then the knocking started again. Same pattern. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. I crept to the window, pulled back the curtain just enough to peek out. The porch light was broken, had been since I moved in. Nothing but shadows and that sick yellow glow from the street lamp 20 feet away. No one there. Must have been my imagination, right? Stress from the new job. New place. Your mind plays tricks. That's what I told myself as I double-checked the locks and went back to bed. But sleep didn't come easy that night. The next morning I tried to shake it off. Made coffee, checked the news, and there was Jaden's mother again. She was speaking at some rally downtown, holding a picture of her son. Her voice cracked as she spoke about safe streets, about how nowhere felt safe anymore. Not even in your own bed, she said, staring right into the camera. For a second, just a second, it felt like she was talking directly to me. That evening, curiosity got the better of me. I drove downtown to the rally. Hundreds of people holding candles, sharing stories about lost loved ones, about violence creeping into quiet neighborhoods like ours. I stood at the edge of the crowd listening. There was something comforting about being surrounded by people who understood that fear, that creeping dread that safety is just an illusion we tell ourselves. As the crowd started to disperse, this man approached me. Tall, disheveled, with these wild, darting eyes that couldn't seem to focus on anything for long. "It's not random," he whispered, leaning way too close. His breath smelled like stale coffee and something else, something sour. The violence. It chooses. It knows where to find you. I nodded politely and backed away, but his words followed me home. They echoed in my head as I brushed my teeth, as I checked the locks, twice, and as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The knocking returned that night. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. This time I didn't hesitate. I grabbed the baseball bat I'd started keeping by the bed and crept to the front door. My heart was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. That wet, urgent sound that drowns out everything else. Through the peephole I saw nothing. Just the broken porch light and that sickly yellow glow from the street. But then I heard something that made my blood freeze. Breathing. Slow, deliberate breathing. Right on the other side of the door. I pressed my eye to the peephole again, and that's when I saw it. A shadow. Just at the edge of the light. Someone was standing there just out of sight, waiting. "I know you're in there," came a voice. Soft, almost gentle. Male, but with this sing-song quality that made my skin crawl. "I just need help, please." Every instinct screamed at me to stay quiet, to wait it out. But something in his voice, this desperate, broken quality, made me hesitate. "What kind of help?" I called through the door, immediately regretting it. "I'm hurt," he said. "Bleeding. Please. I won't hurt you. I just need to use your phone." I stood there, bat in my sweaty hands, trying to decide. This could be legitimate, someone in real trouble. Or it could be exactly what every crime show warns you about. The breathing continued. Patient. Waiting. "There's a hospital 10 minutes away," I said finally. I can call an ambulance for you. Silence. Long, stretched-out silence that made the air feel thick and heavy. Then came the sound that changed everything. Laughter. Not happy laughter. Not even crazy laughter. This was something else entirely. Low, knowing, like he'd just heard the punchline to a joke I wasn't in on yet. "You can't help me from in there," he said, and now his voice was different. Harder. The pretense was gone. "But don't worry, I'll find another way." Footsteps moved away from the door, but they didn't leave. They circled around to the side of the building toward my bedroom window. I fumbled for my phone, dialing 911 with shaking fingers. The operator answered on the third ring. 911? "What's your emergency?" "Someone's trying to break into my apartment," I whispered. He's outside my bedroom window now." "Stay on the line, sir. Officers are on the way. Do not engage with the intruder." But as I spoke, I heard it. The sound of my bedroom window sliding open. I'd forgotten to lock it. The phone slipped from my hands as I heard him climbing through. The soft thud of feet hitting my bedroom floor. I was trapped in the hallway, between the front door and my bedroom, with nowhere to run. "Found another way," came his voice from the darkness of my room. I raised the bat with trembling hands as his silhouette appeared in the doorway. He was tall, wearing a dark hoodie, and in his hand was something that caught the dim light from the street. A gun. "Funny thing about safety," he said, stepping into the hallway. "It's all in your head, isn't it? You think you're safe in your little apartment with your locks and your bat, but safety is just a story we tell ourselves." He raised the gun, and in that moment, I saw Jaden's face. That 8-year-old boy asleep in his bed, dreaming innocent dreams, until a bullet found him in the dark. "Why?" I managed to whisper. He tilted his head, considering. "Because you were chosen. Because the violence has to go somewhere, and tonight, it chose you." The bat felt useless in my hands. Heavy. Pointless. But as he took another step closer, something inside me snapped. I swung. The bat connected with his wrist, and the gun went flying, clattering across the hardwood floor. He screamed, a sound of pure rage and pain, and lunged at me. We crashed into the wall, his hands around my throat. I could smell him now. Sweat, and something metallic, like old blood. His eyes were wild, unfocused, like he was looking through me at something else entirely. I brought my knee up hard, catching him in the stomach. He doubled over, gasping, and I scrambled for the gun. My fingers closed around the cold metal just as he straightened up. "You don't understand," he said, but his voice was different now. Smaller. Scared. I was chosen too. I never wanted. And that's when I saw it. In the dim light from the street, I could see his face clearly for the first time. He looked familiar, like someone I'd seen before but couldn't quite place. "You're him," I whispered, the realization hitting me like ice water. "You killed that boy." His eyes widened. That was an accident. I was aiming for someone else. The bullet went through the wrong window. "Whose window were you aiming for?" He looked at me then, really looked at me, and smiled. That same knowing smile from behind the door. "Yours." The gun was heavy in my hands, heavier than the bat had been. My finger found the trigger, and I could feel his life balanced there. One small movement away from ending. 3 months, he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I've been watching you for 3 months, ever since the rally, ever since you stood there, listening to that mother talk about her dead son. I knew you understood. I knew you felt it too." "Felt what?" "The choosing. The way violence picks its targets. You felt it, didn't you? That night when you heard the knocking, you knew, deep down you knew it was meant for you." He was right. God help me, he was right. From the moment I heard that first knock, some part of me had known, had recognized it, like a song I'd heard before but couldn't name. The boy was practice, he continued. A mistake, but you're the real target, you always were. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Red and blue lights began to flicker through my windows, painting the walls in carnival colors. You can shoot me, he said, taking a step closer. But it won't change anything. The choosing doesn't stop. It just moves on. Find someone else. The front door burst open. Police, drop your weapon. I looked down at the gun in my hands, at this stranger who somehow knew me better than I knew myself, and I understood. The violence doesn't come from outside. It doesn't break through windows or knock on doors in the middle of the night. It comes from inside, from that dark place we all carry, that place that whispers maybe and what if and you could. I dropped the gun. They arrested him, charged him with breaking and entering, attempted murder, and the death of that 8-year-old boy. His name was Marcus Chen, and he'd been living 3 blocks away from me for the past year. The newspapers called him a drifter, a loner, someone who'd fallen through the cracks. They talked about his history of mental illness, his obsession with violence, his belief that he was chosen to commit acts of horror. But they didn't understand the real horror. The real horror is that he was right about the choosing. Because now, 3 weeks later, I lie in bed every night, and I listen. Not for knocking, not for footsteps or breathing or the sound of windows sliding open. I listen to my own thoughts, to that voice that whispers in the dark, the same voice that made Marcus pick up a gun and aim it at random windows, the same voice that made me want to pull the trigger that night. The choosing doesn't stop. It just finds someone new. And now it's found me. So let me ask you something as you lie there in your own bed, in your own sanctuary. Can you hear it too? That soft, patient voice in the darkness waiting for you to listen? Because if you can, then maybe it's already chosen you. Sleep well.